Chapter 3: Attack by Stratagem. Overview. This chapter discusses the issue of defeating the enemy through strategy. Sun Tzu believed that to subdue the enemy without fighting is the highest form of excellence. Forcing the enemy to surrender intact, whether it be the entire country, army, division, battalion, or squad, is the most ideal form of warfare. By contrast, defeating the enemy by force and destroying the country, army, division, battalion, or squad is of lesser merit, is excellence but not the highest kind. How can one achieve the goal of subduing the enemy without fighting? Sun Tzu advocated that the top strategy is to attack with strategy, followed by diplomatic attack, and lastly, military attack. That is, one should aim to conquer the enemy through political maneuvering, diplomatic means, and, only as a last resort, military force. Attacking with strategy refers to using one's own strategic insight to thwart and nullify the enemy's plans, achieving victory without engaging in battle. Sun Tzu considered this the most effective method of warfare. The essence of attack with strategy is the ability to detect, expose, and sabotage the enemy's schemes as they are being formed or before they can be carried out, thereby achieving one's own political objectives. In the event of a confrontation where the enemy is stronger and one side is weaker, Sun Tzu emphasized concentrating superior forces to overcome the enemy, applying flexible tactics such as: if you are 10 times stronger, surround them; 5 times stronger, attack them; twice as strong, divide them; if forces are equal, engage them wisely; if weaker, evade; and if outmatched, avoid confrontation altogether. In other words, avoid head-on confrontation and rigid tactics when at a disadvantage. In this chapter, Sun Tzu introduces the brilliant principle: know the enemy and know yourself, and you will never be defeated in 100 battles. He stresses that strategy must be grounded in a thorough understanding of both the enemy and oneself. 1. The highest form of warfare. Sun Tzu said, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. To compel the entire enemy nation to surrender intact is the best strategy. To destroy it is only second best. To capture the whole enemy army is best. To destroy it is less desirable. To make the entire enemy division surrender is better than defeating it. To capture an entire enemy battalion is better than destroying it. To subdue an enemy company without harm is better than crushing it in battle." Therefore, winning 100 battles is not the pinnacle of excellence. The greatest victory is achieved by defeating the enemy without engaging in direct combat. Reflections. Sun Tzu, in this passage, introduces the strategic concept of complete victory, namely, subduing the enemy without fighting. The ultimate goal of military struggle is to ensure the safety of the nation and the well-being of its people. However, war inevitably brings tremendous costs in wealth and human life. Even if one achieves victory in every battle, the toll remains heavy. As the saying goes, one general's success comes at the expense of 10,000 corpses. Therefore, Sun Tzu proposed, to win 100 battles is not the height of excellence. To subdue the enemy without fighting is the true acme of excellence. He believed that whether it be an enemy nation or army, or even its soldiers and units, the highest level of strategy is to make them yield without engaging in combat. Throughout history, many wise counselors and capable generals placed their efforts beyond the battlefield. They advocated for winning through strategy, combining the threat of force with psychological and political measures, extending kindness and trust, appealing to justice and morality, explaining potential benefits and harms, using the enemy's own forces against them, creating an overwhelming show of strength, applying pressure with large armies, cutting off retreat routes, or severing supply lines. These are all shining examples of subduing the enemy without fighting and achieving complete and total victory. The historical episode of Zhu Jiwu persuading the Qin army to retreat is a classic case of such strategy. He exploited internal conflicts of interest among the enemy's allies, sowed division and disunity, and ultimately dissolved the coalition, achieving the goal of subduing the enemy without battle. In the 30th year of Duke Mu of Qin's reign, 630 BCE, the states of Jin and Qin launched a joint attack on Zheng. Zheng dispatched the envoy Zhu Jiwu to speak with Duke Mu. He argued that the fall of Zheng would not benefit Qin for three reasons. First, it would allow Jin to expand its territory and strengthen its power. Second, despite Qin's past favor toward Jin, Jin had failed to return that kindness, broken promises for selfish gain, and was building fortifications that posed a threat to Qin. Third, Jin's greed knew no bounds. Once Zheng was conquered, Qin would surely be the next target. Zhu Jiwu's reasoning successfully persuaded Qin to switch sides, turning hostility into alliance. Qin and Zheng formed a pact, and Jin was forced to call off its campaign. 2. Strategic priorities in warfare. The highest strategy in warfare is to defeat the enemy through cunning and strategic planning. The next best approach is to subdue the enemy through diplomacy and alliances. Following that is to conquer the enemy through overwhelming military force. The worst strategy of all is to attack the enemy's fortified cities. Laying siege to a city is a last resort. It takes months to build protective shields, siege engines, and other necessary equipment. Constructing ramps and mounds to breach the walls also requires months of effort. If a general cannot control his anger and hastily orders his soldiers to storm the walls like swarming ants, the consequences are devastating. A third of the troops may perish, and still the city may not fall. Such is the brutal disaster that comes with attacking a fortified city. Reflections. In the duel of blood and fire, the flower of wisdom often bears the fruit of victory. Here, Sun Tzu introduces the strategic idea of subduing the enemy through planning, winning completely without fighting. In warfare, there are two ways to force the enemy's submission: winning by strategy and winning by force, which lead respectively to outcomes of total, cost-effective victory and hard-won, costly gains. When victory is achieved by strategy, our costs remain low and our strength is preserved. In contrast, winning by force incurs heavy losses, inevitably depleting national resources and tiring the troops. Strategic victory safeguards the nation and protects the people, whereas victories attained by brute force ultimately bring about national decay. Thus, Sun Tzu advocates for achieving victory through clever planning, by perfectly combining force with strategy to subdue the enemy without engaging in prolonged combat. A historical example of the power of strategy can be seen in the legendary horse race between Tianji and King Wei of Qi. Tianji would always lose when he matched his best horses against the enemy's best, his average against their average, and his worst against their worst. Sun Bin advised him to reassign his horses differently, pit his worst horse against the enemy's best, his best against their average, and his average against their worst. This rearrangement allowed Tianji to win the overall contest by winning 2 out of 3 races. Although the horses themselves remained unchanged, a simple change in order altered the outcome entirely, demonstrating the crucial importance of strategy. Sun Tzu's doctrine of attacking by strategy is equally vital in market competition. Business warfare is not just a contest of economic might, but also a battle of wits. Achieving success by outmaneuvering one's competitors through clever tactics not only conserves resources, but also enables one to dominate the market. This indeed is the best strategy. 3. The art of winning without fighting. Therefore, a commander who excels in warfare can subdue the enemy without fighting, capture their cities without laying siege, and destroy their state without prolonged campaigns. Victory must be pursued through strategies that achieve complete triumph. In doing so, the army remains unharmed, yet the victory is complete and decisive. This is the principle of defeating the enemy through strategic planning. Reflections. As the saying goes, to kill 3,000 enemies, one must sacrifice 800 of his own. This shows that in direct confrontations, both sides in a war inevitably suffer casualties to varying degrees. As a commander, One should aim for total victory and preservation, relying on strategy rather than brute force. Seizing the right opportunities, deploying troops wisely, using tactics effectively, and selecting targets carefully are all ways to achieve victory through intelligence. In the 33rd year of Duke Mu of Qin's reign, which corresponds to 627 BCE, Duke Mu appointed Meng Mingshi as general to launch a surprise attack on the state of Zheng. A cattle merchant named Xian Gao learned of this plan. He immediately sent someone to Zheng to warn them, while also pretending to be a messenger from the Zheng ruler. He selected 20 fat oxen and went to the Qin army, saying, "Our ruler heard that the 3 generals have arrived with their troops and has prepared a small gift to welcome and comfort you. Because our country lies between 2 powerful states, we always keep our troops battle-ready. Please don't take offense." Meng Mingshi was shocked upon hearing this. He realized that although they had planned a long-distance surprise attack, Zheng seemed fully prepared. Fearing an ambush or counterattack, he decided to withdraw and return to Qin to report back to Duke Mu. Generally speaking, in any confrontation, victory can be achieved either through forceful assault or through clever strategy. A frontal assault often leads to casualties, financial losses, and weakened strength. But if one can identify and exploit the enemy's weaknesses, achieving the greatest outcome at the lowest cost, perhaps even without firing a single shot or losing a single soldier, then victory through cunning is the best course of action. To subdue the enemy's forces without fighting, to take their cities without assaulting them, this is the essence of attacking with strategy first. At the time, the goal of subduing the enemy without fighting and capturing cities without attacking did not mean abandoning force, but rather using overwhelming military strength as a deterrent. It did not mean avoiding hard battles altogether, but being fully prepared for them. Only with powerful force as backing and readiness for fierce combat can the strategy of subduing the enemy without fighting be truly effective. Without that strength and preparedness, such a strategy would be empty and ineffective. 4. Adapting to strength, strategic responses based on force ratios. Therefore, the rules of warfare are as follows. If your forces outnumber the enemy 10-1, encircle them completely. If 5-1, launch a direct assault. If twice as many, divide and distract the enemy. If evenly matched, strive to outmaneuver and defeat them. If slightly outnumbered, find a way to evade and disengage. If greatly outnumbered, avoid confrontation at all costs. Thus, a small and weak force that insists on direct confrontation will surely fall into the hands of a stronger enemy. Reflections. In this passage, Sun Tzu discusses adopting different tactics based on the relative strength of one's own forces and those of the enemy, knowing oneself and knowing the enemy, using force according to capability, aiming to maximize victory while minimizing losses, and ensuring that both action and inaction serve the interests of one's side. His ideas carry 2 main implications. On one hand, Sun Tzu advocates for offensive strategies when one holds a military advantage. Under such conditions, one should concentrate superior forces and adopt the tactic of using many to strike few, achieving victory through flexible command and skillful troop deployment. On the other hand, he opposes reckless, head-on engagements between weaker forces and a stronger enemy, comparing it to striking a stone with an egg. Instead, one should avoid direct confrontation, preserve strength, and wait for a more favorable opportunity. In essence, whether dealing with the enemy or evaluating one's own situation, it is vital to assess the circumstances and choose appropriate tactics accordingly. In 1858, the Qing army laid siege to Tianjin, present-day Nanjing, and its Zhongnan camp posed a direct threat to the central authority of the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom. As the Taiping forces were at a numerical disadvantage, to relieve the siege, Li Xiuqing and Li Shixian joined forces and advanced on Hangzhou, aiming to cut off the Qing army's supply line. After capturing Hangzhou, the Taiping troops raised many flags and set up decoy positions to mislead the enemy. In response, the Qing diverted part of their forces to retake Hangzhou. Seizing the opportunity, the Taiping army slipped away, regrouped in Jianping, and launched a successful attack on the Jiangnan camp, thereby lifting the siege on Tianjin. 5. The commander, pillar of the state. The general is the pillar of the state. If the commander possesses both talent and virtue, the nation will be strong. But if the commander lacks ability or moral integrity, the country will inevitably decline. Reflections. A capable general brings peace to the nation. To a certain extent, military strategy is the art of leadership in war. As the decision-makers in military operations and executors of national strategic policies, generals carry the burden of not only winning or losing wars, but also the survival or downfall of a nation. Therefore, appointing a general must be done with utmost caution. If a commander possesses the 5 essential virtues of leadership, wisdom, trustworthiness, benevolence, courage, and strict discipline, then stability will prevail and the nation will grow strong. In war, the general's personal qualities can determine victory or defeat. During the Warring States period, the state of Qin launched a full-scale assault on the state of Zhao. Zhao's experienced general, Lian Pe, defended the city of Chongping by digging deep trenches and building high fortifications, holding his ground securely. The Qin forces were unable to break through for a long time. Later, King Xiaocheng of Zhao fell for Qin's scheme of sowing discord and replaced Lian Pe with Zhao Kuo, an armchair general. Zhao Kuo rashly engaged the enemy in open battle, resulting in a catastrophic defeat. The entire Zhao army was annihilated and 400,000 surrendered troops were buried alive. The state of Zhao never recovered from this blow. 6. 3 ways a ruler endangers the army. There are 3 ways in which a sovereign can bring harm to military operations. Ordering an advance when attack is unwise, or a retreat when withdrawal is inappropriate, this is called interfering with the army's strategy. Ignorantly managing military affairs and disrupting established discipline, this causes confusion among the ranks. Failing to understand the shifting dynamics of warfare, yet assuming the role of a commander, this creates hesitation and uncertainty among the troops. When confusion and doubt spread within the army, disaster is near, as rival states will seize the opportunity to strike. This is what is meant by disrupting one's own forces and paving the way for the enemy's victory. Reflections. In this passage, Sun Tzu discusses the issue of a monarch not interfering with a general's independent command. Once a capable general has been appointed, full authority should be delegated to him. The sovereign should not arbitrarily intervene in military operations. Although the general is appointed by the ruler and is responsible for safeguarding the nation and supporting the sovereign, once entrusted with command, he must not rigidly adhere to every royal order. Sun Tzu states, the method of employing the military: the general receives his orders from the sovereign, assembles and mobilizes the troops, but there are commands from the sovereign that must not be followed. On the battlefield, the general, who is best acquainted with the actual conditions, must act decisively and flexibly, guided by the supreme principle of preserving the people and aligning with the ruler's best interests. Only by doing so can victory be achieved. Otherwise, the troops will become confused and doubtful, leading to internal disorder and inevitable defeat. In the 14th year of the Tianbao era, 755 CE, An Lushan launched a rebellion. Emperor Xuanzong of Tang, lacking military expertise, was misled by corrupt eunuchs and placed blind trust in Chancellor Yang Guozhong. He interfered recklessly in military affairs. Ignoring the advice of experienced generals, he ordered General Gashu Han to launch a hasty offensive. Unable to defy the imperial edict, Gashu Han wept bitterly and reluctantly led the troops into battle, only for his army to be utterly destroyed and himself captured. As news spread, other garrisons collapsed in panic, and Emperor Xuanzong was forced to strangle his beloved consort Yang Guifei to pacify the troops, eventually fleeing the capital in haste. In the early Western Han dynasty, the famed General Zhou Yafu stationed his troops at Shilio, modern-day southwest of Xianyang, Shaanxi, in 158 BCE, during the 6th year of Emperor Wen's Ho Yan era. His military discipline was strict. Even the emperor himself was denied entry into the camp for failing to follow military protocol. Zhou famously declared, "When a general is in the field, there are commands from the sovereign that he must not obey." Rather than reproaching him, Emperor Wen praised Zhou Yafu, calling him a true general. In 154 BCE, the 3rd year of Emperor Jing's reign, Zhou Yafu was appointed to suppress the rebellion of the 7 states. In less than 3 months, the rebellion was decisively crushed. 7. 5 conditions for predicting victory. There are 5 conditions under which victory can be foreseen. Knowing when to fight and when not to fight ensures victory. Understanding how to deploy large and small forces differently ensures victory. When the entire army shares the same purpose and is united in will, victory is assured. When one is well prepared and the enemy is unprepared, one will prevail. When the commander is capable and not constrained by the ruler, success will follow. These 5 principles form the foundation for predicting the outcome of a battle. Reflections. Sun Tzu outlined 5 methods for achieving victory, all of which aim at the principle of knowing oneself. Only by initiating war when one possesses the necessary conditions for victory can one be confident of success. This shows Sun Tzu's cautious attitude toward engaging in battle. He believed that to foresee victory, one must understand their own situation from 5 aspects: the ability to analyze the overall war situation, mastery of military tactics, the morale of the troops, the level of preparation, and the command of capable generals. In 260 BCE, during the Battle of Chongping between Qin and Zhao, the Qin army lured Zhao Ku's troops into an encirclement but did not launch an immediate attack. Instead, they cut off the Zhao army's reinforcements and food supply, leading to a 46-day famine that caused the Zhao troops to resort to cannibalism. Only after minimizing their own losses did the Qin forces execute a massive slaughter, killing 400,000 Zhao soldiers. In the early Eastern Han Dynasty, General Ma Wu was defeated by enemy commanders Su Mao and Zhou Jian and called upon Wang Ba for help. Wang Ba said, "The enemy is strong. If we engage them now, both sides will suffer." He then shut the camp gates and fortified his position. Many could not understand Wang Ba's decision. He explained, "The enemy is strong in morale and numbers. If we don't hold firm, we can't avoid their initial onslaught. But if we appear unwilling to help, they'll become overconfident and act recklessly. Ma Wu, left without reinforcements, will fight harder. Once the enemy is exhausted, we can strike and defeat them." As expected, Su Mao and Zhou Jian attacked Ma Wu, believing Wang Ba would not intervene. After a prolonged battle, Wang Ba launched a surprise attack when the enemy was fatigued. Su and Zhou's armies were struck from both front and rear, panicked, and fled. Wang Ba can truly be called a master of warfare. He understood both the enemy and himself, as well as his allies. He assessed situations based on reality, engaging only when favorable, avoiding battle when not, maximizing his own and allied forces' effectiveness, and deliberately inducing enemy mistakes to gain advantage. He was clearly well-versed in the art of achieving victory. In 478 BC, the Wu and Yu armies confronted each other across the waters at Liza, modern-day Wusong, Jiangsu. To break the deadlock and resume the offensive, Go Jian of Yu employed the tactic of flanking deception under the cover of night. He feigned a strong crossing on both flanks to lure the Wu forces into dividing their main force toward the sides. Then he directed his own main force to strike the weakened Wu center, achieving a decisive victory. 8. The importance of knowing both sides. Therefore it is said, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you will not be endangered in 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, you will win one and lose one. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will be defeated in every battle." Reflections. Sun Tzu, in concise and vivid language, pointed out the connection between a commander's understanding of both enemy and self and the outcome of war. The famous saying, "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you will not be defeated in 100 battles," reflects Sun Tzu's guiding principle on the relationship between knowledge and warfare. This principle encompasses not only the awareness of objective conditions on both sides, but also an understanding of the principles of strategy and the rules of combat. Moreover, it reveals how the grasp of the enemy's situation directly relates to the outcome of a war. This maxim has become not just a strategic rule for military leaders throughout history, but also a scientific truth. During the Chu-Han contention, Han Xin was able to quickly help Liu Bang defeat Xiang Yu because of his deep understanding of both sides. He analyzed Xiang Yu's weaknesses for Liu Bang. The enemy has 5 disadvantages. He is brave but lacks strategy. He is untrustworthy. He is short-sighted. He fails to reward and punish justly, and he is cruel and unpopular. In contrast, our side has strict discipline and enjoys the people's support. Liu Bang, after hearing Han Xin's analysis, was able to calmly formulate his strategy, gradually seize the initiative, turn the tide of battle, and ultimately defeat Xiang Yu. Another famous case of knowing both enemy and self comes from the Ming Dynasty, when Emperor Xuanzong, Zhu Zhanji, suppressed a rebellion. In May of the first year of the Hongxi reign, 1425, the Ming Emperor Renzong died, and his son Zhu Zhanji ascended the throne as Xuanzong. Taking advantage of this transition, Zhu Gaoxi, the prince of Han and Renzong's younger brother, rebelled in August of the first year of Xuanda, 1426. Zhu Gaoxi was known for his cunning, arrogance, and martial skills. He had earned military merits during the Jingnan campaign and had always believed he deserved to inherit the throne. However, Emperor Yongle Zhu Di passed the crown to his eldest son Zhu Gaoqi, while Zhu Gaoxi was granted the title of Prince of Han and sent far away to Yunnan, a move he deeply resented. He refused to leave Nanjing for his fiefdom, demanded more military escorts, and likened himself to Qin King Li Shimin, later Emperor Taizong of Tang. He looked down on the crown prince and long harbored ambitions to usurp the throne. Later, he was reassigned to Qinzhou, present-day Yidu, Shandong, where he secretly recruited 3,000 warriors without registering them with the Ministry of War. His brutality escalated. He allowed his followers to loot and kill civilians, even executing innocent people by dismemberment and throwing them into rivers. When an official named Su Yelu arrested some of his followers, Zhu Gaoxi beat him to death with an iron mace. Upon hearing of his crimes, Emperor Yongle summoned him to Nanjing and intended to strip him of his title, but relented after Zhu Gaoxi's repeated pleas. Instead, Zhu Gaoxi's military escort was removed and he was reassigned to Luan, modern Guangrao, Shandong. When Emperor Yongle died, Zhu Gaoxi watched events closely, ready to act, but missed his chance. 10 months later, Emperor Renzong also passed away. While Zhu Zhanji rushed to Nanjing for the funeral, Zhu Gaoxi planned an ambush along the route, but the plot failed due to poor timing. After Zhu Zhanji became Emperor Xuanzong, he initially tolerated Zhu Gaoxi, but the prince persisted in plotting rebellion. Finally, in August of Xuanda Year 1, Zhu Gaoxi launched his revolt, accusing loyal ministers like Xia Yuanji of treason and claiming he was repeating his father's campaign to rectify the court. He even sent secret envoys to Beijing to seek support from Duke Zhongfu, who instead arrested them and exposed the plot. Faced with the rebellion, some advised sending General Xue Lu to suppress it. However, the official Yang Rong objected strongly, citing past failures like that of Li Jinglong. He urged Emperor Xuanzong to personally lead the campaign, arguing, "Zhu Gaoxi believes your majesty is newly enthroned and will not personally fight. If we surprise him by leading troops in person, our heavenly might will ensure victory." Xia Yuanji agreed, adding that striking quickly would demoralize the enemy. Xuanzong accepted the advice and personally led 5 armies to confront Zhu Gaoxi. On the march, Emperor Xuanzong asked his ministers, "How do you predict Zhu Gaoxi will act?" Some said, "Luan is small, he'll try to seize Jinan." Others speculated, he'll march south to take Nanjing. Xuanzong analyzed, no, Jinan is difficult to capture, and if he hears we are advancing, he won't have time for a siege. Also, his soldiers' families are in Luan, they won't want to leave. Though outwardly boastful, he is inwardly timid and indecisive. He dares rebel only because I am young and newly enthroned, thinking I won't lead troops myself. If I send generals, he expects to break them with bribes. But when he learns I am leading the army in person, he will be terrified and won't dare fight. His prediction was spot on. At first, Zhu Gaoshi was pleased to hear Xuelu was coming, saying he's easy to deal with. But when he heard the emperor himself was coming, his morale collapsed. Emperor Xuanzong sent envoys to Luan to deliver an imperial edict urging surrender. At the same time, he led his army to surround the city on all four sides. Inside the city, morale collapsed. Some of Zhu Gaoshi's officers even planned to arrest him and surrender. Desperate, Zhu Gaoshi left the city and surrendered. He and his son were captured and brought to the capital. The rebellion was quashed. As one of the more capable emperors of the Ming dynasty, Emperor Xuanzong showed foresight, clarity, and a thorough understanding of both his own strengths and the enemy's weaknesses. He truly embodied the principle: if you know the enemy and know yourself, you will not be defeated in 100 battles. In this case, he won the war before a battle had even begun.